Hello, and welcome to the Beyond Average Journeys of Growth and Increasing Value interview series. And I'm your host, Kristen Carlson. And today I have Gary Palmer, founder and CEO of Payall Payment Systems in Miami, Florida. So, Gary, thanks for joining us today.
Kristen, it's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
And I am so excited to hear about your journey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Payall Payment Systems and what brought you to start this company?
So Payall is frankly a pioneer in that we're building the first ever infrastructure for financial institutions, banks, and others in the cross-border ecosystem to address the foundational issues of cross-border payments, which on a global basis, they're recognized as high risk, inefficient meaning slow and costly to everybody, opaque, and not inclusive. And so what we're doing is not competing with financial institutions, not trying to disintermediate and marginalize them, which is the mission of most startups coming into this massive market. Our mission is to give financial institutions in the entire ecosystem software, infrastructure, so that they can offer safe, efficient, transparent, and inclusive cross-border payments to their customers.
Awesome. So are you saying your clients are really the banks or are they individual business owners?
They're banks. We provide software to financial institutions and banks that allow them to offer these a far better way for their customers to make cross-border payments. And we do have a large number of financial institutions who are live. And so if there are small businesses out there struggling, we're able to take them to financial institutions that are using our technology and immediately improve how they make cross-border payments.
Right. So you're saying these payments then are safer and are they less expensive than what the traditional way of transferring money is?
Kristen, they're safer in every way. Let me give you just sort of jump to a real world example. We did a demo last year for a financial institution in the US. It was Friday night at 7:02 p.m. And we were sending €5 to a bank account in Portugal. The top leadership at the bank that were on the call said, this is a waste of our time. It's 7:02 p.m. here in the United States and the East Coast. It's 2 minutes past midnight in Portugal. We process through a correspondent bank. And if our customer were to send that payment right now, it maybe would arrive on Tuesday, definitely would arrive next Wednesday, and the person would have a negative €20 in their account because their receiving bank charges a €25 fee. Most banks would charge a fee for receiving an international transfer. Well, by the time they finished complaining and saying why this demo was such a bad idea, at 7:06 p.m., so 6 minutes past midnight on a Saturday in Portugal, €5 had arrived in the other person's account. And they were shocked. No one could believe it. So the first, and we also sent an email and text message to both the sender and the recipient confirming delivery. So think about it.
Wow.
Funds were delivered in
Huge.
4 minutes on a Saturday in the receiving country. The recipient was not charged a cross-border fee. That was like, they couldn't believe it. They thought it was a hoax, but of course it wasn't. Now let's pivot to the financial. And so from the user experience, that was fantastic. It was delivered immediately. They received confirmation. The recipient wasn't charged a fee. But on the other side, the FX rate and the transaction fees that the financial institution charged were essentially the same as the big money center banks. So the smallest little financial institution, if they work with us and our partners, they're able to offer cross-border payments that are competitive with the largest banks in the world and far, far better in terms of the speed and how they're delivered. I'll mention one of the side point for a bank is we're converting a small little bank out on Long Island that only does $7 million in cross-border payments. Now, on that $7 million, they make about $23,000 in revenue, but they actually lose money. And they lose money because they only get a transaction fee from their correspondent bank. They mark it up. And so that's their revenue, the $23,000 to $25,000. But they actually lose money because they have so many calls from customers inquiring about the status of their payment. And again, this speaks to the inefficiency, slow, and the lack of transparency, opaque. But when they convert to us and a new service from MasterCard called MasterCard Move, that's $7 million in cross-border volume they do will generate over $200,000 in revenue. Their customers don't pay any more. So they're paying the same transaction fee. They're having the same FX rate that they've been getting through the correspondent bank, but the bank increases their revenue, 10x. On top of that, their margins are about 80%. And so because no one's calling them to find out when is my money getting there, because it's delivered in minutes, and an email confirmation and text message are going to the sender and recipient confirming delivery. So yeah, we're giving financial institutions the ability to offer their customers by far a better cross-border product than they've ever gotten. And at the same time, because the software is enabling so much efficiency, we're able to the banks are able to price those services in a way that they can compete with the biggest banks on the planet and still make good money.
It sounds awesome. So do you help those banks do that financial analysis to see what they could save or make?
Absolutely. We have a completely turnkey business case model that brings transparency to that. And the banks don't even need to spend money building the model. We have a financial analyst assigned to each bank, and they're able to see what their business would look like if they either convert from a correspondent bank to us, or if they've never been able to offer cross-border payments if they launch with us.
So where did you start? How did you get this business model? Where did your career go to take you to start this business?
Well, I actually started in payments in 1996, sort of by an accident. So I've been building software for financial institutions since 1996, a long, long time ago. And the experience was really not a traditional sort of startup path. I was working for a large retail organization, and I was a district manager being transferred from Tampa, Florida to Miami, Florida. And in the const of that, and in the process of being transferred, my home was broken into. And the sheriff caught the guys walking down the street with like a TV and camcorder and stuff. But then the insurance company, when I filed the insurance claim for everything else that had been stolen or damaged, the process that they went through to replace my items was that they had subcontracted with a company to replace everything that was lost or stolen. In insurance, in the property and casualty insurance business and homeowner insurance business, insurance companies generally have the right to write you a check to give you the money for what was lost or stolen or damaged, or to replace those items. And this insurance company opted to replace. So I was working for a large retailer, and I said, listen, if you're going to replace, you're going to buy the stuff from me, because that's where I bought everything from, as you can see from the receipts. And they said, well, you guys are too expensive. So I helped negotiate a sort of wholesale rate, and this little replacement company began buying from us. But my experience was a disaster. They even messed up my little claim. And so I said to them at the time, I said, it would have been much more efficient for me if you had just given me a payment card, like a Visa card or a MasterCard, that I could have used to replace the items that were lost or stolen. But imagine if you had built that card in such a way that it only worked at a subset of merchants. It wouldn't work at liquor stores and travel agencies, but it would work at the places that sold the goods that I lost or that were stolen or damaged. And you could have negotiated sort of a rebate with those firms so you could harness your buying power. It would have been easier for me to upgrade or downgrade or shift within the category without running to the bar. And everyone would have had a better experience. And the CEO of the company said, well, it sounds like a great idea. Why don't you come do it? And I said, no, I'm working, blah, blah, blah. But about a year later, he kept pushing me on this idea. And I then decided to join this company and to create this new payments business out of this insurance replacement business. And so that, frankly, was at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I learned a lot along the way. But what I was actually doing was creating a new category of payment card that became known as a prepaid card. So when you think about the card industry, we know about credit cards, we know about debit cards. And at the time, again, I didn't have the nomenclature or the context to understand what we were doing, but we were really pioneering a new category of payment product called prepaid card. It just happened the initial use case was for insurance claims. But over the course of about a year of raising capital and trying to find investors who believed in this idea, because the company that I joined really didn't have the capital or the infrastructure to do this, I helped basically shut down that old business and start a new business, which was a payments business. I learned a lot about the card industry and I partnered with someone, a mentor, someone who actually became the CEO, a much older gentleman who had successful exits in the card business. And we created the first ever prepaid card issuing platform. So that was the first ever system built for financial institutions so that they could offer their customers all kinds of prepaid cards, gift cards, rebate cards, travel cards. I mentioned insurance replacement cards, but that was the genesis of the prepaid card industry from a theft that I had being relocated from Tampa to Miami.
Wow, that is fantastic. And you really had to educate the industry about what this opportunity could really be.
Kristen, it was a whole new category. And
Right.
fast forward to 2005 when we sold the company, 7 of the 10 largest US financial institutions were buying processing services from this company.
Wow.
About 30 or 40 banks around the world were our customers. And in 2005, we sold the company for just over $250 million to a public company called eFunds. And eFunds was a leader in providing financial technology to banks, payments and risk management and compliance services and a variety of other services. And then about 27 months later, I was on the executive team that sold eFunds to FIS for 1.8 billion. So we doubled the value from 900 million, which was the price that eFunds was trading at, or the value eFunds had on the stock exchange when they bought my company. And then we sold it for 1.8 billion 27 months later.
Well, congratulations. And wow,
Thanks.
that's amazing. And so you didn't retire.
Well, you know what? When we sold to eFunds, we had an earnout so the idea of retiring was not on the table. When we sold to FIS, after about 6 months of working full time, I decided to take some time off. But the fact is, I discovered that I love to work. I love building things. I love being in the thick of it with customers and employees and their colleagues and partners, trying to do big things. And the idea of not working, even though I tried a few months to kind of deprogram my brain to not work, I found out I hate it. I'm really not that productive or positive of a human being if I'm not engaged on a team trying to solve some big problems. And
Right.
Kristen, just as a bit of context, we're all motivated by different reasons for starting a business. I don't think there's any one sort of secret to what motivates people. But for me, I've always been a person who likes to make a difference. And I've found that sometimes in big companies, due to politics and bureaucracy and structure and a lot of things, it's hard to make the kind of difference you want to make. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I was raised on a farm in West Virginia. Most all of my relatives worked in the coal mines. My dad was an electrician in a factory. And I saw people struggling in the 70s and 80s through difficult economic times. And I just wanted to have a little bit of a financial safety net for myself. And if I decided to have kids at the time I was thinking about that, I didn't want to face the struggles that other people that we face when we go through life. And so my reason for starting my first company, which was called Wildcard Systems, was A, I wanted to be able to make a difference, and B, I wanted to have some choices, some choices in life that, and I wouldn't feel sort of the extreme risks that people face due to inflation or recessions or working for other companies, and you just can't really control your future so well.
So, how did you discover the problem for your current business and what you're trying to solve with Payall pay systems?
So I was making an investment in a company in Vienna in 2016. And my bank, which is one of the world's top banks, I'd been a customer there for more than 10 years. They knew my background. They knew my source of income. They knew where my wealth came from. And yet making this €750,000 investment took nearly 2 weeks. And it was a
Wow.
disaster. And all I could think of, this is one of the most ridiculous experiences for someone to have. And at that point, I was not working full time. I made some investments in other companies. I started and built a company that was an e-money institution in Europe, and I'd helped that entity get its license with Visa and MasterCard to be able to issue prepaid cards. I participated in funding and helping build another technology company that was really one of the earliest pioneers of real-time payments in the United States by repurposing the PIN debit networks that we normally think of as a way to take money out of a bank account at an ATM or by entering our PIN at the point of sale. Those are what are called EFT, electronic funds transfer networks, or PIN debit networks. And I was an investor in a company and chairman of a company that, instead of using those networks to take money out of account, use it to put money into accounts. And that was really the first time that you could deliver funds to a bank account in the United States, real time, 24/7. And MasterCard bought that company in 2015. So I had made this investment in this company in Austria, and I realized it was sort of like a terrible experience. And one of my friends who works at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia said, Gary, cross-border payments are a disaster. You really ought to look into that. So I began deconstructing how payments, cross-border payments, international bank transfers work. And basically spent about 6 months or more than that, closer to a year, deconstructing the entire correspondent banking paradigm and how an originating institution, a bank that wants to offer cross-border payments, goes about partnering with another financial institution in order to offer that. And then I looked at how that bank, that financial institution, supports the originating institutions and how they actually manage enabling foreign currency conversions and delivering funds all around the world. And what I found, it was an abject disaster. The software that banks were using, whether it's a core bank system, a digital bank platform, or any of the other software they're using, was never designed for this purpose. And so I decided I'm going to fix it. And so I began starting with a whiteboard and said, if we started the world today in 2016, and we're going to offer cross-border payments, now that we have the internet and we have commercial trade and we have all of these reasons why people move money, and we look at the state of affairs in bank tech and reg tech and payment processing tech, what would we do differently? And I built from scratch, designed from scratch, infrastructure that allows financial institutions to make these payments. And so it's an entirely new system. It's not based on cryptocurrency. It's not based on digital ledger technology. I took common concepts used by the Federal Reserve Network in the US, which is called a single shared platform, and used by the ECB in Europe to enable the movement of funds between their institutions. It took the concept of a single shared platform and made it global, and then added a bunch of other stuff to it that would address all of those issues that are required to be addressed to make these payments safe, efficient meaning fast and low cost, transparent and inclusive. So that was the sort of history and the jumping off point for what we began building at Payall.
Wow, that's amazing. And having done some work across borders, I mean, really, we don't know how to pay each other or collect, and it is a challenge. So I thank you for solving this and trying to bring it up to today's technology. I think that's a challenge in the banking industry too, right? They have so many legacy systems that really don't work.
Kristen, this is not a small task.
No.
I've spent $20 million building our infrastructure.
Wow.
And I've had to do that with great financial sponsors and investors who believe in us. And I'm truly humbled by the fact that some of the most venerable venture capital firms in the world are backing our vision. So Andreessen Horowitz is one of my investors. Motivate Ventures out of Chicago is one of my investors. A lot of high net worth men and women who are leaders in bank tech and reg tech and fintech who've known me over the years have said, Gary, we want a front row seat at this adventure you're on. More recently, Thomson Reuters has invested. The venture capital arm of Sumitomo Corp has invested, which is incredibly humbling. And our vision is a big vision, Kristen. I mean, the cross-border market is $160 trillion. That's the volume of international
Yeah.
trade. And it'll grow to 250 trillion by 2030. And again, imagine the global economy, the world economy depends on trade, which require payments. And just think about it. These payments are categorized as high risk. They're inefficient, they're slow and costly, they're opaque. How can the world economy be founded on a payment that's functionally dysfunctional, that's unsafe, expensive, slow, and opaque? And so we're going after something, we're trying to execute something that's really, really a big idea. And we're having great success. So I think when you asked in the beginning what motivates me, this motivates me.
Right.
Solving really complicated, hard problems that are big is something that just energizes me every day.
Wow. And I'm humbled to have you here today, and excited for what you are bringing to the world, and simplifying something that's probably way too complex at this point, with the banks that aren't involved with what you're doing today. So if you had a couple key learnings that you'd like to share with entrepreneurs over your career, what would those couple things be?
Kristen, I have a tendency of keeping it real. You won't find much flowery talk in how I engage with people or share things. And it's to me, what my experience has been, and I can only speak for myself. I have found that if I really become knowledgeable about a problem I'm trying to solve, and I get deep into the weeds of what everybody that's associated with that problem is experiencing, and there's a way to actually solve the problem that everybody benefits, that's sort of like the first requirement is you have to make sure the problem is something that's big enough and nasty enough and painful enough that people will care about it being fixed, and you know how to fix it. The second part, and this is really difficult, is make sure you have people around you who can help you along the way. I have never, ever once been able to be successful on my own. We have a remarkable team at Payall, and I want to emphasize that it is based on a certain culture. And that culture is we're true to that first mission of solving these big complex problems, and that we're going to deliver capabilities that no one else is or has, or we're going to make sure will be competitive with what we do. We're always going to stay ahead. And the team, you have to have people who buy into that, who get that, who that becomes a part of who they are. And it's not they're collecting a paycheck. It's not that they're affiliated with some abstract mission, but it has to be real and has to be client-based along the way. And the third thing is, and and both of these things are hard, by the way, they're not easy. The third thing is you better be prepared to sacrifice. This is not a 40-hour-a-week job. When you sign up to start a company and take on something that's really big, you better make sure that your life and your energy and your way of living is able to support that commitment, because otherwise you're going to fail. So you have to be all in order to really succeed. And the fourth thing is it's going to take money. And it's really, really important to make sure that you understand how to operate your business, how to build what you're going to build, how to operate. And the business model will attract investors. And it's not easy to find investors. So those would be my sort of very direct suggestions for any entrepreneur.
Awesome, thank you. And you did mention culture, and that's something I love to focus on. So how did you build that culture in your business?
Well, I've always been person, even in my first company to now, that lives inside my customer's business. I know, and again, I'm not judging CEOs who operate differently, but I have to be in front of customers. I have to be in my prospect's house, understanding what it is that they're struggling with. And that sort of client focus is something that I require of everybody we hire. We have a very, very specific process to try to understand if people are interested in, or they're sort of programmed, they have that client first chip in their brain where they're going to put customers' needs first. And they can both operate individually and independently to deliver great value, but they can also operate on a team. Because when you're starting a company, especially a complex company or a company that's doing something that's never been done before, there's no roadmap. There are no series of procedures. You got to figure stuff out every single day of the business, and you need people who can figure that out. So this is something from a cultural perspective that is a part of every conversation I have, every meeting we have, and in fact, our org chart has customers and partners at the top. It has those who are interacting with those customers and partners underneath of them. Then it has the rest of the organization supporting people who are front-ending relationship with customers and partners. And me and the board are at the bottom. We have to serve the organization so that those who are ultimately interacting with our customers every day have everything they need to be successful. And this idea of culture is something, these aren't, the Payall Life, our website is a thing called Payall Life. I wrote that. I wrote most of our website, but that's how I live and breathe, and it's the culture inside our company. And if it's not ingrained in every employee and every policy and every practice, culture becomes an interesting buzzword, and it's not real. It is absolutely real inside Payall.
Well, you gave me goosebumps. That's amazing. I love that org chart too. I mean, that's really the key to success, right? Is you as the leader supporting everyone that's making it happen in your business. So congratulations. You are an amazing leader, and I'm truly humbled to have you on my podcast. You have a great story, and I can't wait to share this with others. So thank you so much for joining me today, Gary.
And I'm not someone who seeks, to be in the public spotlight at all. I'm a very private person, but I'm happy to do your podcast. I checked out some of your other work. It's great. I'm humbled to be here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, and have a super day.
Thank you. Bye.